My name was Amir. I was an Imam, a revered figure in the heart of Mecca, surrounded by the hallowed walls of the Grand Mosque. For years, I was a beacon of faith, guiding others with the teachings that once filled my soul with purpose. Every prayer, every sermon, echoed the rhythms of tradition, but beneath that serene exterior, I battled torrents of doubt, fissures in a carefully constructed facade that threatened to unravel at any moment. It was during one particularly poignant moment of prayer, cloaked in a profound silence, that everything changed. As I knelt on the cold marble floor of the mosque, I felt an overwhelming emptiness consume me. I began to question everything I had known. Was religion meant to liberate the soul or imprison it? Burdened by these thoughts, I fell deeper into despair, unable to voice my concerns to the very community that revered me as a leader. Then, in the depths of my turmoil, something extraordinary happened. During a moment of intense supplication, I was transported into a state of divine revelation. Surrounded by darkness, I saw a blinding light. His presence. Jesus stood before me, calling my name, as if he had been waiting for me in the shadows of my doubt. He unveiled a spiritual battle that transcended our earthly understanding, revealing how the chains of my faith had been tightly woven by the hands of fear and manipulation. The revelation shattered my world. I returned to my life, filled with a sacred knowledge that left me both exhilarated and terrified. My attempts to share this encounter met with disdain. Branded as a heretic, I felt the isolation weigh heavily upon me like a shroud, yet the spark of truth refused to be extinguished. Each day passed with the urgency of a ticking clock, compelling me to seek answers that lay hidden in the crevices of my new faith. Now, I stand at a crossroads, a call to embrace my true purpose and share the awakened truth with a world steeped in deception. This journey, once lonely, has morphed into a quest for liberation, not just for myself, but for all those who feel trapped under the weight of falsehoods. Before we delve deeper into my story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from, and what time is it in your world? Your presence matters. And if you love Jesus and are ready to explore revelations that can transform your life, subscribe to Truth from Beyond now. This isn't just my testimony. It's a doorway to a profound awakening, and it's just beginning. In the heart of Mecca, where the Grand Mosque stands as a beacon of faith and tradition, I find myself surrounded by the spiritual intensity that defines my life. My name is Ali, and as an Imam in this conservative neighborhood, I have always felt a deep reverence for the rituals and practices that guide my community. Every day, I lead prayers, sharing the teachings of Islam with those who look to me for spiritual guidance. Yet beneath the surface of this vibrant life lies an unspoken tension, a quiet storm of doubt and internal questions that have begun to plague my soul. Though surrounded by devotion, I feel an aching sense of disconnect from the very faith I've devoted my life to serving. The pressure to conform to societal norms has been suffocating. The traditions that once provided comfort have started to feel like chains. I've spent countless nights wrestling with these feelings, feeling as if a part of my spirit is dying within me. Restlessness pervades my mind, and as I lead prayers, I often reflect on the questions that linger. What lies beyond the confines of these walls? Are there truths yet uncovered that could illuminate the path forward? I've sensed that there's more to faith than mere obedience, but expressing these thoughts is fraught with risk in a community that values unwavering adherence to tradition. Then one evening, as I immersed myself in prayer, seeking solace within the walls of the Grand Mosque, something shifted dramatically. I collapsed into a deep state of unconsciousness, and in that moment, I was thrust into darkness. I felt as if I was wandering through an endless desert, devoid of life. Suddenly, a blinding light appeared in the distance, drawing me closer. In that moment of clarity, I stood before Jesus. His presence radiated love and acceptance, a stark contrast to the turmoil I had been experiencing. "Ali," he said, and the tenderness in his voice was more powerful than anything I had ever felt. In that moment, my resistance melted away. In his light, revelations began to unfold. Jesus revealed the hidden agendas that manipulate our beliefs, how the elite twist narratives to maintain control over our lives. I witnessed the deception that has twisted the very essence of organized religion, where fear and division often overshadow true spirituality. The images flooded my mind: wars fueled by ignorance, communities fractured by dogma, and individuals caught in cycles of despair. I understood that I had been living in a fog, unaware of the larger spiritual war that was being waged all around me and, tragically, within me as well. As I returned to consciousness, a profound sense of purpose surged within my heart. I realized my experience was not just for my own understanding. It was a divine calling to share these revelations with others who were still trapped in darkness. The weight of responsibility pressed on me as I contemplated how to express these truths while navigating the potential backlash from my family and community. Would they understand? Could I risk losing the relationships that defined my life? I knew I had to confront these fears head-on, compelled by the truth I had been shown. I was ready to step into the light, to awaken not only myself but also those around me. The spiritual war was real, and I had a role in this battle for awareness, truth, and awakening. As I led my congregation in prayer at the Grand Mosque in Mecca, an outward sense of calm enveloped me, yet inside I battled a storm of emotional turmoil. My name is Amir, and as a respected Imam, I wore the mantle of authority and compassion with pride. Yet beneath that serene exterior lay an aching void that I could no longer ignore. I had devoted my life to the teachings of Islam, committed to guiding others on their spiritual journey, but I often felt repressed by the very traditions I upheld. The teachings that once filled my heart with purpose had grown into constraints, stifling my quest for deeper understanding. Each day, while I recited the Quran and led prayers, whispers of doubt lingered just beneath the surface. I felt increasingly disconnected from the core of my faith, as if my spiritual journey had been hijacked by a rigid adherence to rules that overshadowed the essence of love and compassion that Islam teaches. Instead of guiding me toward enlightenment, these rigid traditions left me feeling isolated, trapped in expectations that didn't resonate with my evolving beliefs. It was during these moments that I found myself yearning for something more profound, something that would reignite my spiritual fire. One fateful night, as I knelt in prayer, seeking clarity and deliverance from this emotional void, I suddenly lost consciousness. In an instant, I was swept into a darkness that felt both cold and endless, until a radiant light broke through, illuminating my surroundings. Standing before me was Jesus, his presence overpowering and enveloping me in unconditional love. Amir. He called my name, and as I looked into his compassionate eyes, all my fears were washed away. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming understanding that my journey was not just about personal belief, but about the larger spiritual war that was being waged around us. Jesus began to share revelations that shook the very foundation of my understanding. He revealed the hidden agendas of the elite, the manipulation of faith and spirituality to ensnare souls in deception. I witnessed the stark reality of a world divided, where fear and misinformation created barriers that kept communities apart. The truth about the suffering and conflict faced by millions echoed in my heart, and I realized how often we blindly adhered to narratives designed to keep us in the dark. Each revelation felt like a key unlocking the doors of understanding, urging me to confront the unspoken realities of my society. As I reawakened in the quiet of the mosque, the familiar sounds of worship enveloped me again, but now they felt altered. The faces of my congregation were no longer just a collection of devoted followers. They represented souls yearning for truth and liberation. I understood my role now. I was called to guide them through the spiritual war that entangled us. The truth I had witnessed must be shared, even in the face of potential backlash. I felt a fierce determination to break free from the constraints of tradition and inspire others to embark on their own journey of awakening. The deception that had infiltrated our lives would not silence my voice any longer. It was time for us all to step into the light together. As I continued my prayers in the Grand Mosque, there was a growing sense of emptiness that gnawed at me like a relentless tide. I'm Amir, a 38-year-old Imam, respected and revered in my community for my devotion and guidance. Yet with each prayer, I felt increasingly distanced from the very beliefs I preached. The weight of tradition that once felt supportive began to become suffocating. Though I was surrounded by the sacredness of our faith, I felt as if I were shouting into an abyss, searching for answers that seemed perpetually elusive. Each night, my dreams became more disturbed, haunted by visions that echoed my doubts. In my sleep, I would see a shadowy figure, the outline of a face shining with an indescribable light. It felt as if this presence was trying to reveal something vital, something hidden just beneath the surface of my consciousness. I began to question whether the very traditions I held sacred were keeping me from actualizing my spiritual truth. Was religion merely a tool for social control, a hidden agenda designed to keep believers in check while the elite thrived on our devotion? In the midst of my internal conflict, a profound moment occurred during one prayer session. As I fell deeper into concentration, an intense wave of dizziness washed over me, and suddenly, the world around me faded away. I collapsed into a distinct state that felt both timeless and disorienting, enveloped in darkness. It was then that a blinding light pierced through, and standing before me was Jesus. His presence exuded warmth and an overwhelming compassion that washed over my troubled heart. "Amir," he called softly, and in that moment, every fear I had vanished, replaced by a deep-seated desire to learn from the truth he embodied. Jesus began to enlighten me about the spiritual war that rages not just within individuals, but also in the fabric of society. He revealed the layers of deception woven by those in power, showing me how they manipulate our beliefs and exploit our fears to maintain control. I saw visions of division and suffering caused by misinformation. War is ignited by the false threats the elite propagate. Communities torn apart by dogma and ignorance. The waking world felt pale in comparison to the vibrancy of these revelations. I was gripped by urgency as I realized my life, my role, and my spiritual journey played into this larger narrative. When I finally returned to consciousness in the mosque, I felt a sense of clarity mingled with anxiety. The familiar faces of my congregation swirled around me, yet I felt like a stranger in my own life. The truths I had witnessed demanded to be shared, yet fear gripped my heart. Would they understand? Would they reject me, seeing me as a heretic for questioning the very foundations of their faith? As I knelt in prayer, the turmoil within became an indelible reminder that my awakening was part of a larger mission. A call to share the revelations I had received from Jesus, unearthing the truths to help others awaken in their own spiritual wars. I took a deep breath, understanding that I was at the precipice of a journey not only for myself but for the entire community. In the heart of the Grand Mosque, surrounded by the whispered prayers of my community, I found myself wrestling with an unsettling void. My name is Amir, and for years I've been an Imam devoted to my faith, diligently guiding others in the teachings of Islam. Yet, as I knelt in prayer that day, an intense wave of anxiety began to wash over me. The verses I recited sounded hollow in my ears, echoing the discontent that had quietly seeped into my spirit. How could I lead others when I felt so disconnected from my own beliefs? The crisis deepened like a storm brewing on the horizon, and I feared the tumult within me might explode at any moment. That evening, the tension culminated in an experience that would change everything. As I reached the peak of my prayer, my mind spiraled into darkness, and I felt myself slipping away. In that moment, I experienced what felt like a near-death experience, a profound descent into a bleak void. It was here that a blinding light abruptly cut through the darkness, bright and beckoning. Standing before me was Jesus, his presence radiating warmth and a sense of divine purpose. "Amir," he called, and the sound enveloped me like a soothing balm. Every fear and doubt I had clung to began to dissipate in that powerful moment. Jesus began to unveil revelations that shattered the illusions I had held for so long. "You are in the midst of a spiritual war," he revealed, illuminating the truth behind the hidden agendas crafted by the elite. Images flashed before my eyes, political manipulations, deceptive narratives driving divisions among my people, and the way society often exploits faith as a means of control. These truths were not merely abstract ideas. They pierced through the very core of my understanding. I realized that the traditions I had cherished could sometimes serve as barriers to genuine spiritual awakening, distracting followers from the deeper connections to the divine and to one another. With each revelation, an urgency surged through me. Jesus made it clear that my experience wasn't random or isolated. It was a divine calling. "You must awaken, Amir," he said, and in that moment, I understood that I was meant to share this truth with those around me. This was more than a personal journey. I had a responsibility to guide others toward liberation from the deceptions that stifled their faith and bound them to a life of fear. The weight of that responsibility pressed heavily on my heart as I contemplated the profound changes that lay ahead. As I returned to consciousness, the familiar surroundings of the mosque felt different. The faces of my congregation, once comforting, now seemed full of potential yet shrouded in misunderstanding. I could no longer ignore the necessity of speaking out, of addressing the spiritual war that was so very real. In the days that followed, I wrestled with how to communicate these truths without igniting backlash from my community. I had to convince them that the quest for truth was not a betrayal but a fulfillment of the very essence of faith. I knew that awakening required courage, not just from myself but from everyone ready to embrace the truth, no matter how daunting the path might be. After the transformative revelation I experienced during prayer, I found myself standing on the precipice of a new reality. My name is Amir, and for years I've been a respected Imam in Mecca. But when I returned to my community, I was met with rejection rather than understanding. When I began to share the encounter I had with Jesus, the truths he revealed to me about the spiritual war we are all a part of, my words fell on deaf ears. To my family and friends, I was no longer the faithful servant they admired. I was labeled a heretic, a traitor to the very traditions I had upheld. The weight of their disdain crushed my spirit. The same people who had once sought my guidance now turned their backs on me, their suspicion palpable. Every gaze felt like an accusation, every whisper a judgment. I grappled with my own feelings of guilt and betrayal. How could I abandon the beliefs that had shaped my life? Yet, the revelation I received was too profound to dismiss. I felt a tumultuous internal crisis brewing, a fierce battle between the indoctrination of my upbringing and the new truths that set my heart aflame. It left me feeling isolated, adrift in a sea of uncertainty, longing for connection but fearing further ostracism. Amidst this turmoil, I knew I had to seek more answers. In the dead of night, when the world lay still, I quietly began researching Christianity. I read the Bible in secret. Every word, every verse felt like a lifeline thrown to me amidst the storm. I watched testimonies from those who had encountered Jesus, just like I had. They spoke of liberation and awakening, and I felt a spark ignite in my heart. Each story resonated with my own journey, reinforcing my belief that I was destined to find this new path, despite the risks it posed to my relationships and my identity. As days turned into weeks, I continued to delve deeper into my studies while wearing the mask of a dutiful Imam in public. My prayers started to shift. I found myself not just reciting verses, but seeking the transformative power behind them. The teachings I had propagated began to reveal layers I had never considered, shedding light on the hidden agendas of those in power, those who wielded religion as a tool of control. I soon realized that the very structures I had defended could perpetuate division and deception. The urgency of this realization weighed heavily on my heart, demanding that I take action, despite the consequences. I longed to share my discoveries with those still caught in the cycles of fear and submission. I felt a pressing need to awaken those around me to the spiritual war happening not just within me, but in the lives of everyone I knew. The truth was a powerful weapon against the deception that held sway over my community. Yet, the fear of rejection, of being labeled an outcast, was a constant barrier to my voice. Still, I couldn't ignore the call. I had to find a way to articulate the awakening I was experiencing, hoping that others would join me in this fight for truth and understanding. The journey was just beginning, and I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, yet the pursuit of genuine faith and community fueled my resolve to forge ahead in this new chapter of my life. My journey into the depths of faith and truth began under the weight of my inner turmoil. I'm Amir, a 38-year-old Imam in Mecca, once revered for my knowledge and commitment to Islam. Yet, as I led prayers and taught the Quran, I felt an unsettling emptiness growing within me. Each prayer that once filled my spirit now echoed back in absence. I started grappling with doubts I had long repressed, all while the rigid expectations of my community pressed heavily on my shoulders. I often found myself questioning the very teachings I preached, wondering if there was a deeper truth lying beneath the surface of our traditions. Then came the pivotal moment that changed everything, a near-death experience during one of those intense prayer sessions. I collapsed in the mosque, and in that moment of darkness, I was transported to an ethereal realm where the light of Jesus shone brightly before me. It wasn't just a vision. It was as if every burden I carried had been lifted. Amir. He called to me with such a tenderness that I felt an overwhelming rush of peace. In that heavenly presence, he revealed profound truths about the spiritual war that raged not only within me but throughout the world. I began to understand the hidden agendas of the elite, those who craft narratives that keep society confused and divided. The revelations were jarring, etched into my soul like a new way of seeing the world. Jesus unveiled the manipulation that often lies beneath the surface of organized religion, how it can be wielded as a weapon of deception rather than a source of awakening. I witnessed how fears were exploited by those in power to stifle true spiritual growth, constructing barriers that prevented genuine connection with the divine. The truth about political and social structures revealed themselves to me, painting a picture of a world fighting against its own awakening. I knew I had to confront the grim realities and stand for the truth, but as I began my new quest for understanding, another battle raged within me. Could I risk everything I knew for this new path? In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in studying the Bible and absorbing testimonies from individuals who had undergone similar spiritual awakenings. The stories resonated deeply within me, affirming that I was not alone in my quest for truth. I discovered a small group of people who shared my experiences, providing a sanctuary where we could discuss our struggles without fear of judgment. Each gathering felt like a lifeline, a chance to connect with others who understood the urgency of the spiritual war we were facing. We shared our fears and doubts, but also the hope that came from embracing the truth together. This connection offered me a sense of purpose that had been elusive for too long. However, while I took comfort in this newfound community, the fear of losing my former life loomed large. The thoughts of my family, my role in the community, and everything I had built haunted me. Would my loved ones see me as a betrayer if I openly pursued this journey? The anxiety wrapped itself around my heart, threatening to silence the awakening I desperately sought. Yet with every passing day, the truth manifested itself more clearly. I realized that true liberation must come at a cost, and to serve my community genuinely, I would need to gather the courage to share my experiences no matter the potential fallout. As I continued to delve deeper into my studies and connect with my newfound community, my resolve strengthened. The calling I felt was now undeniable. I was meant to share the revelations of Jesus and help others around me awaken to the truth. I knew this would likely lead to resistance, but I also believed that real faith should lead to freedom, not confinement. With each prayer, with each conversation, I could feel the stakes rising. The The spiritual war was raging on, and this time, I was prepared to stand in the light of truth, ready to help illuminate the path for everyone still caught in darkness. It was time to act, to awaken, to fight for the freedom that Jesus promised, even if the price was steep. As I embraced my life as an Imam in Mecca, I always felt a deep sense of duty to my community and my faith. My name is Amir, and I've dedicated years to guiding others through the teachings of the Quran. Yet, beneath the surface, a persistent emptiness followed me, a gnawing discomfort that refused to fade. The prayers I led felt increasingly hollow, echoing in my heart as reminders of a truth I couldn't quite grasp. Each day, as I walked through the mosque, surrounded by the faithful, I wore a mask of conviction, masking the turmoil that churned inside. I felt trapped in a spiritual war, grappling with a conflict between the traditions I upheld and the awakening that felt increasingly urgent. The change came suddenly during one intense session of prayer. I collapsed, succumbing to what felt like an overwhelming force pulling me into darkness. In that state, I encountered a blinding light that filled my entire being. Standing before me was Jesus, radiating love that pierced through my doubts and fears. Amir. He called my name, and in that moment, a sense of peace washed over me, eclipsing all my anxiety. I understood then that my experience was not just a personal transformation. It was a divine calling, a revelation that would guide my next steps. As he spoke to me, truths began to unfold. Jesus revealed the hidden agendas of the elite, illuminating the manipulations that keep society shackled in ignorance and fear. I witnessed the societal deception that thrives on division, political factions fighting for control, communities fractured by misunderstanding, and families torn apart under the weight of dogma. This revelation didn't just shake my understanding, it rooted deep within my soul, igniting a fierce determination to uncover the truth that lay beneath the surface of our beliefs. I knew the spiritual war we faced wasn't just personal, it was collective, and I had a role in the fight for awakening. Every revelation was like a spark, igniting my resolve to speak out, no matter the cost. I could feel the weight of responsibility pressing heavily upon me. The fear of rejection from my community loomed large, and the thought of being branded a traitor haunted me. Yet I understood that the truth must be shared, even if it meant risking everything I had built. The potential for awakening in the eyes of others filled me with hope. Every conversation held the possibility for change, the chance to guide someone out of darkness and into the light of understanding. Returning to the world outside that transcendent moment felt surreal. The passage of time and the weight of judgment hung in the air, as I prepared to confront my community with the truths I had discovered. I had been given a gift, a revelation meant not only to transform my spirit, but to awaken those around me. I longed to challenge the narratives that perpetuated fear and division, to ignite a spiritual awakening that could shine a light on the hidden agendas that had long kept us trapped. I took a deep breath, summoning courage, understanding that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but so vital for the unfolding of truth and liberation in our spiritual war. Leaving my home was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. My name is Amir, and as an Imam in Mecca, I spent years devoted to my faith and community, embodying the teachings I once revered. Yet after my transformative encounter with Jesus, everything shifted. The revelation of his truth stripped away the comforting facade of my former life and exposed the deeper spiritual war one had been blind to all along. In that moment of awakening, I understood that clinging to my past would only serve to anchor me further in doubt and deception. With a heavy heart, I chose to change my name, symbolizing the shedding of my old identity. It wasn't just a change of name, it was a drastic step into the unknown. I ventured into a world filled with uncertainty, leaving behind the safety of my community and the familiar rhythms of my daily life. Fear loomed over me, a constant reminder of what I had sacrificed. Yet, deep down, I sensed that this was necessary for my spiritual journey. The struggle for truth, the fight against the hidden agendas that manipulate belief systems, required courage, and I was ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The road was fraught with challenges. I encountered hostility from those who had known me all my life. Simply expressing my newfound beliefs often drew disapproval and scorn, reinforcing the isolation I felt. But even amidst the suffering and resistance, I began to understand a profound truth. True freedom often arises through struggle. As I navigated my new life, I discovered a small, welcoming community of believers who had also experienced their own awakenings. Each shared story reinforced my resolve. I knew I wasn't alone in my quest for spiritual understanding. In this new environment, I was able to speak openly about the truths Jesus had revealed to me. I shared how he illuminated the hidden agendas of the elite, showing me how they perpetuate division and deception, keeping humanity shackled in ignorance. The more I spoke, the more I realized the urgency of our mission. We were not merely individuals seeking our paths. We were a collective, facing the forces that sought to manipulate our beliefs. The realization that we were engaged in a spiritual war pushed me to dig deeper, to support others in their journeys toward the truth. As I immersed myself in this new community, I felt the chains of doubt begin to fall away. I was empowered to assist others in their awakening, guiding them toward liberation from the spiritual war that consumed many. I knew that my testimony could be a light for those still caught in darkness, and I made it my mission to spread the truth as widely as possible. Though the path forward was uncertain, I felt a profound sense of purpose, fueled by the belief that through Jesus, genuine freedom and transformation would ultimately blossom, even amidst suffering and adversity. I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, committed to this journey of truth and awakening. Years later, I find myself in a new city, immersed in my mission to share the truth that was revealed to me during that fateful prayer at the Grand Mosque in Mecca. My name is Amir, and while I've left the familiar embrace of my community behind, I've never felt more alive. The experience of encountering Jesus transformed my understanding of faith and my role within the spiritual war that rages around us. Each day, as I interact with new faces, I'm reminded of the powerful awakening that can occur when one dares to question the hidden agendas that manipulate our beliefs. Sharing my testimony has become a vital part of my life. I speak about the revelations I experienced regarding the elite and their deceitful practices that foster division and mistrust among communities. The stories I hear from those I meet reflect the struggles faced by countless individuals navigating their spiritual paths. I listen as they share their own encounters with doubt, fear, and confusion. In these moments, I recognize the universal yearning for truth that binds us together, even in a society striving to keep us apart. It fuels a fire within me, urging me to continue this mission of enlightenment. Yet, with each impact I hope to make, the fear of the consequences of my choices looms overhead. I often find myself wrestling with memories of my family, the love I have for them, and the uncertainty of their acceptance of my new beliefs. The anxiety of being labeled a heretic continues to haunt me, making me question if my decision to embrace this new faith was worth the cost. I long for reconciliation, to bridge the growing gap between who I once was and who I am becoming. I fear that the promise of truth may never reach them, that they might remain shackled by the very traditions that bind them in unyielding submission. Despite these challenges, I've been blessed to find a community of fellow seekers, individuals who understand the beauty of pursuing truth, even amidst adversity. Together we gather to discuss our stories and insights, often feeling the palpable tension from the world outside. We know that we're engaged in a spiritual war, a battle to reclaim our faith from those who would use it as a tool for oppression. Each meeting transforms fear into strength as we encourage one another to push through the walls of deception that attempt to confine us. As I continue to navigate this complex journey, I hold on to the hope that one day I might share these truths with my estranged family. I am determined to show them that the awakening I have experienced is not a rejection of our roots, but a deeper embrace of the love and compassion at the heart of our faith. In this pursuit for truth, I've come to understand that although the path is fraught with challenges, it is crucial to shine a light on the darkness that often obscures understanding. No matter the risks I face, I am committed to this mission, to enlighten others and to awaken those still trapped within the shadows of deception. As I stood in the Grand Mosque, lost in the depths of prayer, an unsettling emptiness began to consume me. My name is Amir, and for years I've held the revered title of Imam, leading my community in devotion and faith. Yet, despite the reverence I commanded, I felt a profound disconnection growing within. Each day, I recited the verses of the Quran with conviction, but inside I grappled with an internal turmoil that left me questioning the very foundations of my beliefs. The rituals that once brought me peace felt confining, as if they were veils shrouding a deeper truth just out of reach. The pressure of expectation loomed over me like a dark cloud. I felt the weight of tradition pressing on my shoulders, stifling my desire to explore the spiritual depths beyond what was prescribed. Every night, I dreamed of a radiant figure, Jesus, whose presence stirred something deep within my soul. These dreams planted seeds of doubt about the rigidity of my faith, suggesting that perhaps there was a truth that transcended organized religion, a truth that had been kept from me by a hidden agenda of manipulation. I started to wonder if my devotion had somehow blinded me to the broader spiritual war being waged around us. Then one evening, during an intensely fervent prayer session, the shift I had been anticipating finally came. I felt myself collapsing into darkness, only to be enveloped by a brilliant light that illuminated every shadow in my heart. Standing in that light was Jesus, his countenance radiating in all-embracing love. "Amir," he said softly, the power of his voice washing over me like a gentle wave. In that sacred moment, all doubts melted away, and I was filled with an overwhelming clarity. Jesus began to share revelations about the spiritual war we are all part of, peeling back the layers of deception to expose the truths that bind us. He unveiled the hidden agendas of the elite, showing me how they manipulate beliefs and perpetuate conflict. I witnessed visions of society divided, people driven by fear and mistrust, a narrative crafted to keep us trapped in confusion. The realization struck me hard. Many of us unknowingly adhere to these deceptions, blinded by the traditions that were meant to provide light. Jesus urged me to see that these very structures could serve as chains, hindering our true connection to the divine and to one another. The urgency of his call stirred a fire within me, compelling me to take action. When I finally returned to consciousness in the mosque, everything felt different. The familiar faces of my congregation now seemed shrouded in uncertainty. I understood that I had to share the profound truths I'd encountered, despite the fear of risking everything I had built. The path forward was daunting. The potential backlash hung heavy in my heart. Yet, Jesus' revelation was too important to remain silent about. I felt a calling to awaken my community to the spiritual war around us, a battle for awareness, for truth, and for genuine connection. It was time to confront the darkness together and embrace the awakening that awaited us all, even if that meant stepping into the unknown. Now that you've walked this journey with me, I have to ask, do you ever sense there's a greater conflict hiding in plain sight? A spiritual battle that transcends our everyday experiences, a war for the very essence of our beliefs and understanding? Because once you grasp the depth of this reality, you can never return to ignorance. What I encountered not only reshaped my life, but illuminated the path for others still shrouded in darkness. In the embrace of Jesus, I saw the urgent need to peel back the layers of deception that cloud our collective vision. And it's a call we must take seriously. Each of us holds a piece in this grand puzzle, and the time for awakening is now. So I turn to you. Have you ever felt that disquieting sense of something being off with the world around you? A moment that made you question the very essence of your beliefs? I encourage you to share your stories in the comments below. Your voice matters, and together, we can forge a community of truth seekers ready to challenge the status quo. If these revelations resonate with you, please consider subscribing to Truth from Beyond and hitting the notification bell. Each story, each testimony shared here is a call to awaken, and by joining us, you ensure that you don't miss the unfolding revelations destined to guide our paths. There's so much more to uncover, and this journey is just beginning. In our next video, prepare to hear another incredible account, a glimpse into the lives of those who have faced their own spiritual awakenings amidst the shadows. I'm Amir, and as we conclude this chapter, remember, the quest for truth never ends. It simply leads us deeper into the light. Thank you for being here.